The goal of this presentation is to introduce teachers and administrators to CORI, or Concept-Oriented Reading Instruction, and the CORI Assessment Rubric for Science Writing on Ecology. Concept-Oriented Reading Instruction, or CORI, is a curriculum framework designed to teach children reading comprehension through the integration of science and reading. The primary aim is to increase the reading comprehension of students in 3rd to 5th grade by increasing their reading engagement. Now, CORI consists of 7 science concepts for ecology. They include competition, feeding, predation, communication, reproduction, defense, and locomotion. Now, they also include 6 reading strategies. Now, the background about this study and assessment delivery. CORI has been studied numerous times. I'm particularly referring to a 12-week reading comprehension intervention project that occurred in 4 Frederick, Maryland schools. Teachers were trained in CORI intervention, and they received various trainings, including a week-long intervention training. This longitudinal grant studied 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. 3rd graders progressed from 3rd grade through 5th grade, and we followed those students. This grant was funded, as you can see, at about $13 million. Now, actual assessment. Assessment began with students writing about their background knowledge for a given biome. Example of a biome would be a desert or the ocean. This writing was collected. Next, students were given a topic packet of about 70 pages. This 70 pages simulated a chapter book on the same biome they were asked to write about. Students were given logs to record their notes, and after that activity were asked the same guided questions used during background writing. This pre- and post-assessment was given in September as well as May to look at student growth after the CORI intervention. Those responses were coded using the rubric that we will review. The main goals of the CORI assessment were to measure students' growth in conceptual knowledge of science and to look at conceptual knowledge of students that were in the CORI intervention and compare them to the control group. It should be noted that reading comprehension is defined in the CORI study as the process of the construction of conceptual knowledge from a text through cognitive interaction and motivational involvement with that text. Examples of students' actual responses that were coded and the rubric for concept-oriented reading instruction. Again, remember to refer back to the assessment. The assessment consisted of the 70-page booklet that simulated a chapter book, and then students were asked to write what they had learned. So in this case, this is all the student had wrote in grasslands, lions, tiger, zebra. This is a second example. There are fish, grass, bear, deer, snake, otter, flowers, trees, and the forest. This is all the student wrote. This put this answer at a level 1, pretty much facts and associations that possibly an octopus lives in the ocean. Pretty much they're defining the biome by what exists there. An octopus lives in an ocean. A fox lives in a forest. A level 2 would have probably consisted of more of a list of animals and then possibly a small reference back to our concept. So animals eat, so predation. Now, level 3 on the rubric is getting a little more specific about those concepts and evidence. So this student wrote, "What I know is a golden wheel spider can cartwheel, gorillas can crawl." I've added that refers to locomotion. You can see the student wrote more there, and the diving beetles can feed on tadpoles. That's showing some more about feeding, another concept. It concludes these concepts, but it doesn't include a lot of supporting evidence, and it is kind of just written with disorganization. So that would get it a level 3. A level 4 might consist of more of a student giving physical characteristics and behavioral patterns that facilitate survival of an animal. This started with basic food webs as well as interactions. They might be partly stated. All right, so for example, you might have something like, "Some snakes which live in the desert squeeze their prey to death and eat them. This is called a deadly hug. Bright markings on snakes warn others to stay away." In the deserts, 2 male jackrabbits would fight for a female. Some deserts are actually cold and rocky. Both deserts are hot and cold. It barely ever rains, and it does come down so hard and so fast that it runs off the ground and doesn't sink into the ground. That would be an example of concepts and evidence extended, level 4. Now, at a level 5 and 6, at a level 5, the student wrote this. A river is different from rivers and grasslands are alike and different. Rivers have a lot of aquatic animals. Grasslands have mammals and birds. Rivers don't have many plants, but grasslands have trees and lots of grass. Oh, excuse me, this is a level 6. I apologize. I should have been reading this one. A river is different from a grassland because a river is a body of water and a grassland is land. A river is fast flowing. Grasshoppers live in grasslands. A grasshopper called a locust lays its eggs in a thin case. One could carry 100 eggs. Notice there's a detail. The largest herbivores in the grassland are an elephant. In the African savanna, meat eaters prey on grazing animals such as a zebra. Many animals live in a grassland. The river is home to many animals. In just a drop of river water, millions of animals can live. Many fish live in the river. Many birds fly above the grassland. A river is called freshwater because it has no salt in it. This detailed parallel between organisms and their inhabitants of the biome is the central feature of the conceptual knowledge of this student. Now, I apologize, I had started to read level 6. So, again, rivers and grasslands are alike and different. Rivers have lots of aquatic animals. Grasslands have mammals and birds. Rivers don't have many plants, but grasslands have trees and lots of grass. Rivers have lots of animals like fish and trout and sticklebacks. They also have insects and mammals, like the giant water bug and river otters. Grasslands usually have lions, zebras, giraffes, elephants, gazelles, and birds. In the river, the food chain starts with a snail. Insects and small animals eat the snail. As you can see, we're getting into food chains here. Then fish eat small animals and insects. The bigger animals like the herring and the bears eat the fish. Snails also eat algae, which grows from the sun. In the grasslands, the sun grows the grass. Animals like gazelle, antelope, zebra eat the grass. Then animals like lions eat them. This is called a food chain, and what eats what. In a way, the animals are helping each other live. Animals have special things for special uses. Example, otters have closable noses and ears. Remember, this is the student's actual full response. Gills let fish breathe underwater. Some fish lay thousands of eggs because lots of animals eat fish eggs. Some animals have camouflage. Swallowtail butterfly larvae look like bird droppings. This is what I know about rivers and grasslands. So that response would have received a 6. If you notice, the student presented pretty much 2 small food chains for each biome they talked about and went into naming predator and prey. All right. So as you can see, this answer is much more detailed and much more extended. Reliability and bias. Validation is the process of accumulating evidence that supports the appropriateness of the inferences that are made of a student's response for specified assessment uses. Validity refers to the degree to which the evidence supports that these interpretations are correct and that the manner in which these interpretations are used is appropriate. Content-related evidence refers to the extent to which a student's response to a given assessment instrument reflects the student's knowledge of the content area that is of interest. For example, a history exam in which the questions use complex sentence structure may unintentionally measure students' reading comprehension skills rather than their historical knowledge. Also note evaluation criteria. If the construct to be examined is reasoning, then spelling error in the student's explanations are irrelevant to the purpose of the assessment and should not be included in the evaluation criteria. Concerns about the valid interpretation of assessment results should begin before the selection or development of a task or assessment instrument. A well-designed scoring rubric cannot correct for a poorly designed assessment instrument. First, clearly state the purpose of the objectives of the assessment. Next, develop a scoring criteria that addresses each objective. If one of the objectives is not represented in the scoring categories, then the rubric is unlikely to provide the evidence necessary to examine the given objective. If some of the scoring criteria are not related to the objective, then once again, the appropriateness of the assessment and the rubric is in question. With this rubric, care was taken to make sure that we were intentional in our measurement of conceptual knowledge gained from reading. Spelling and grammar did not count. Length of response is not relevant. Students could provide a long list of animals, but if concept information was lacking, they would not move past to level 1. 3. It aimed to look at the depth of conceptual knowledge, not just a reference to a concept. Having been the creator of this rubric, I would add that it is flawed and that levels should have had clearly numeric delineation of how many concepts or animals you must mention to move up into a level. Inter-rater reliability refers to the concept that a student's score may vary from rater to rater. Students often criticize exams in which their score appears to be based on a subjective judgmental of their instructor. For example, one manner in which to analyze an essay exam is to read through the student's responses, make judgments as to the quality of the student's products. Without a set criteria to guide the rating process, two independent raters may not assign the same score to a given response. Each rater has his own evaluation criteria. Scoring rubrics respond to this concern by formalizing the criteria at each level. The description of the scoring levels are used to guide the evaluation process. Although scoring rubrics do not completely eliminate variations between raters, a well-designed rubric can reduce the concerns of these discrepancies. And as I was stating, the CORI rubric was put through the process of inter-rater reliability, and I would say that this refers back to my statement that there should have been more delineation between the exact number of concepts mentioned and the exact number of animals mentioned to be moving up rubric level. That was one of its biggest flaws. Okay, and finally, bias. The fact that various biomes are used, I would suggest that the ocean biome is more personal to the students that were in this study because they came from Maryland. It would be interesting to see if students in another state, such as Arizona, would have had different results with the ocean biome as opposed to the desert biome, which was another biome used in this study. Remember, their environment is personal to them, their students, so they probably had more prior knowledge of the environment in which they grew up with. An attempt was made to randomize the biomes that the students were asked to write about when they received their booklet. However, we cannot isolate the personalness that they lived within they lived within a biome that emphasized the ocean. Okay, outcomes of data. So basically, an administrative leader would be intrigued by the results of the CORI study. Okay, basically what we found is that CORI students comprehend new books better. CORI students are motivated to want to read, and in fact, they choose to read more books after being in CORI. CORI students learn concepts more deeply. This finding relates to the rubric we reviewed, which is valuable for general knowledge and valuable for their content learning. So basically, they construct deeper levels of conceptual knowledge. However, administrative leaders would have to balance how they can implement CORI with the resources they already have in their school. I noted at the beginning of this presentation, the CORI program was a fully funded grant, and money is needed for books and supplies and training and must be taken into account. However, the concept-oriented reading instruction can be integrated into the curriculum without the need for additional funding. For example, elementary grades can introduce concepts even at a preschool level. For example, the science concept of reproduction can be scaffolded down to having babies, and locomotion could be scaffolded down to the vocabulary of the word movement, and then could be scaled up to these higher level vocabulary as the students progress from preschool to first, second, third. This would allow students to have the opportunity to start learning conceptual knowledge of ecology at a younger level. By establishing the concept-driven study of animals, school leaders would reap the benefits of the concept science framework. In addition, direct reading strategy, which was not mentioned explicitly in the study, but again, I mentioned that CORI integrates 6 reading strategies. We just didn't have time to talk about that. Direct reading instruction could also be embedded in all disciplines in the school, including art and technology classrooms, creating a school culture that emphasizes direct reading strategy instruction. If you want to read more about Cori, you can find more about Cori in the book Motivating Reading Comprehension by Dr. John Guthrie, Alan Wigfield, and Kathy Perencevich, particularly Chapter 9, which is my chapter on the reading comprehension rubric with Dr. John Guthrie. Thank you, and these are my references.